across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you for the next 3 hours, and coming up at midnight, as ever, it is your chance to talk back. A whole hour dedicated to you. There's a really interesting... I find this stuff really, really interesting because I don't know how you measure or prove somebody's mental health condition. But this is exactly what the Tony Blair Institute is suggesting that is now done. Block benefits for those with ADHD. He's also saying for people with anxiety and depression as well, to stop them claiming benefits and saying to them that that these conditions are not work limiting, that you should be able to still go to work with a bit of support, and therefore take you off the benefit system. Now, there is a good reason why we need to cut down the benefits bill. It's because it is rampant. It is running out of control. 1,000 new claimants a day coming up for PIP. And it's just, it can't continue. But I don't know which is the fairest way to make sure that people with real depression and anxiety and with work limiting ADHD don't just automatically lose out, because that's what it looks like on this. It looks like it's just going to be a blanket stop. That's what Tony Blair wants. Well, his institute does. He wants a blanket, just stop, a handbrake now on anyone with those conditions getting benefits. So I'd like to speak to you about your mental health condition. Does your mental health condition stop you from working? If you had to prove it, could you? And that's the other issue. And do you think that actually, we shouldn't be equating mental health issues alongside physical health conditions? Because that was a change that happened in recent years. That they were put on a par with physical health conditions, and that's why we're now seeing people who are just going online and saying, "Yeah, I've got anxiety, I can't work," and claiming benefits for that condition. So, I want to hear from you. Could you prove that you can't work if you had to with a mental health condition? Because I think that's impossible. But anyway, how is your mental health condition work limiting? How does it stop you from going to work? And the reason I want to talk about this is because I want other people to understand that not all mental health conditions are equal. And you can't just, as the Tony Blair Institute is suggesting, just say, no, anybody with those conditions, we're going to stop them from getting benefits. So give me a call. I'd love to hear from you on this, because I just think it's one of those things that is an easy thing to say, but a very, very difficult thing to prove. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. I think this is coming. Something very similar to this is going to be coming down the pike very, very soon, because we cannot afford this welfare bill to keep growing the way it is. But is this fair? Would this be reasonable? So that's what we're going to be talking about at midnight. Let me fill you in what's coming up on the rest of the programme. Claire Muldoon will be joining us to go through the papers. Simon Calder will be joining. If you're thinking about booking a summer holiday, or you're worried about booking a summer holiday because of the flights crisis, because of the jet fuel crisis, then you're going to want to listen to what Simon has got to say. I read his article on this today, and it's really spot on. It would be, wouldn't it, Simon Calder? Anyway, we're going to talk to him. So if you're just about to book, wait an hour just until you've heard what Simon Calder has got to say about planning your summer holiday. Ryan Saby will be joining us, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun, where we'll talk about that breaking news that Peter announced at the end of his programme there about Angela Rayner rejoining government. But also, I want to talk about the Mandelson stuff. And is it really that big a deal for the rest of the country, or is it just a Westminster story? So we'll be talking about that as well. So all of that is up in the next hour. But let's talk first about the King. The King's visit. The King and Queen are on their second day of their historic visit to the United States. They arrived in Washington, D.C. last night, as we discussed, to celebrate the 250 years of American independence, and they had tea in the White House. Today, the King was welcomed with a grand ceremony on the South Lawn featuring a 21-gun salute and a military parade. And after the ceremony, the King and President held meetings to discuss the strong friendship between the two countries. And then Charles addressed the US Congress and is now attending a state dinner. We've got a clip of him attending Congress. Here is just a part of what he said in his 20-minute speech.
The alliance that our two nations have built over the centuries, and for which we are profoundly grateful to the American people, is truly unique. And that alliance is part of what Henry Kissinger described as Kennedy's soaring vision of an Atlantic partnership based on twin pillars, Europe and America. That partnership, I believe, Mr. Speaker, is more important today than it has ever been. Ours is a partnership born out of dispute, but no less strong for it. So perhaps in this example, we can discern that our nations are in fact instinctively like-minded, a product of the common democratic, legal and social traditions in which our governance is rooted to this day.
He'd also told a few jokes. He was quite amusing in it as well. But he kept hammering home this great relationship between the UK and the US. Well, joining us now to discuss this and more about the visit is award-winning journalist in Washington, D.C., Caroline Faraday. Thank you for being there for us. This is absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
Caroline, tell me, whereabouts are you, first of all? What are we looking at behind you? Is that White House?
Well, as you can see, can't quite see the dome, but this is the Capitol building. So this is the seat of power in the United States, and this is where both chambers of the House came together, both sides, both parties came together, but also Congress and Senate all together. There were also a spattering of Supreme Court justices and various other people all in this room, and little old me in the gallery as well, watching this all play out, which was really quite spectacular to sort of witness this momentous moment. Prince Charles, I still do this all the time.
I still do it as
King
well.
Charles arrived, and he reminded them that actually this is his 20th visit to the United States. It is his first as king, and he is the first king to have addressed Congress. His mum did it as queen in 1991, and he lent into that history. But, you really got the feeling they sort of loved the history. Both parties, which are very divided on a lot of things, Petrie, actually really came together. There's a lot of standing up and sitting down. There's a lot of standing ovations. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of that.
But so the King was there. What did you make of his speech? Because I felt it was very pointed.
Yes.
So I'd just be interested what your take, being in the room, was.
Yeah, it was very pointed. But he did it with this kind of soft power, with kid gloves, in the way that the royal family have been able to do, is to kind of lean more into that kind of, non-party, non-partisan way of kind of saying what they need to say, but not being too blunt about it, because of course there is all this division and it has all been going off. So he started off actually kind of riffed a bit with a bit of comedy, warmed up the room. He made a couple of jokes that were very well received in the room, and that kind of relaxed the folks in the room. And then he got to it very early on, talking about the conflict in Ukraine, talking about the conflict in the Middle East. He made a point to mention the assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He said such acts of violence shall never succeed. So he showed really early on the allegiance between the United Kingdom and the US. He said, whatever our differences, we stand united. Now, bear in mind, in that room was pretty much every person of power, apart from the president, who isn't allowed to attend, right? He met Trump at the White House this morning, but this was J.D. Vance, the Speaker of the House, and then all these top politicians from everywhere. He talked a lot about the weight of history, and he made a few points. He made the point about, when the NATO Article 5 was triggered after 9/11, we stood with you then and we stand with you now. Both sides of the House stand up, of course. There's a lot of standing up. He talked about the priceless bond being eternal and unbreakable. Interestingly, because of course he is also the head of the Church of England, he then started to talk about faith. And this is when he made this point about Christianity. The Republicans get up and the Democrats reluctantly get up. And then after they've applauded this point, he then started to talk about people of all faiths, about interfaith, and the value of that and the shared values and leaning into that. And you could see that that is a message that he really wanted to get home over here, where he sees that there is division on that front. And then he did not really mess around at the end. He turned to the speaker and he turned to J.D. Vance and he said a warning. America's words and actions carry meaning. He was referring to the Magna Carta. He talked about executive power being subject to checks and balances. Democrats stand up, Republicans reluctantly follow along. That kind of thing. There was this whole kind of, not very heavily disguised nudge. It was a bit, we're very British about it, aren't we? You've offended somebody if it says regards instead of kind regards, right? There's a subtlety to what he was saying, but that word warning, America's words and actions carry meaning. And he is, of course, referring to the words that get, tweeted or whatever it is, Truth Socialed at 3 o'clock in the morning. He didn't call it that. He didn't need to call it that. It was very clear what he was talking about. And it was just a reminder to all of these people that were stood there who have real power in this country, that no one man is above those checks and balances, and that really was very warmly received. It was interesting because I talk so much about the division in the US. Being in that room with Trump excluded, I was watching people. I sat watching that gallery for 30, 40 minutes, from the gallery, watching the House floor. People getting on from all parties, chatting, the volume in the room was at, people were getting on fine, actually,
that's interesting,
in that seat of power. Yeah.
The other thing with his speech is he talked about democracy. And he talked about, and I don't know whether I was listening to it with my, with my Donald Trump ears on and thinking, oh, is he trying to say something here to Donald Trump and to the Republicans about how precious democracy is?
Yes,
when a lot of people are accusing of Trump of taking a more authoritarian direction in his presidency. So it really...
I would say that definitely the Democratic half of the House saw it that way. And you couldn't just have, like you get in the State of the Union, where one side stands up and the other side doesn't. I mean, the king stood there. So if the Democrats stood up, the Republicans had to. So they all had to agree on these common principles. It was quite interesting to sort of watch this little dance kind of play out of who welcomed which remarks. But yes, I think there are remarks there that definitely people could have taken as being quite pointed about Donald Trump and about the current administration and about the way that's working. When he mentioned checks and balances, that got, some very delighted folks on the Democratic side of the House. But those are common values. I mean, he did not stray into anything controversial. He wasn't there kind of going into, any of the greater controversies that have been going on in both countries. There's not going to be a mention of Epstein.
We were talking about this yesterday, Caroline. He has a very difficult path to tread with Donald Trump, because we all know that obscene flattery seems to work with Donald Trump for a while until you say no to him, and then you're dead to him. So, and the king, not being a politician, he is able to say things that a politician can't say, but he's also unable to say things that a politician can. So it is quite a difficult path for him. Do you think he tread it well today?
He did, and it was interesting because, of course, on top of that, it's not just any state figurehead. Donald Trump, when he was talking at the White House this morning, he is pretty starstruck by the royal family. He talked about his mum being born in the Hebrides. He was like, that's real Scotland, you know, not the rest of Scotland. And he said, what if my mum could see me now, basically, you know? And I think that is something that plays to Donald Trump quite a lot when it comes to the royal family. So in terms of diplomacy, there is a smart way of thinking that they are the UK's greatest asset in building a relationship where things get difficult politically, and that Trump has been more critical of Keir Starmer. That, okay, well, we know he likes the king. He played that well. I mean, and the king did a great job of kind of coming in, making these couple of jokes. They all want to see the king. They don't have it here, right? Yeah. It's all fascinating. He acknowledged the shared history. He acknowledged, you know, his great whatever grandfather. You know, he even made a joke about how him coming to Congress wasn't some backdoor way to try and take the country back. I mean, he sort of acknowledged the sort of real, you know, there is a lot of that patriotic spirit, and why, you know, there were some people protesting, why would the English be here? We kicked them out 250 years ago, you know, all that kind of thing. There was a little bit of that kind of outside the house. But honestly, once you got inside, it was just so welcoming. And you could tell on, you know, cross-party, they were very excited to have him here in a way that they just wouldn't have been if it had been the Prime Minister of any party.
And the Queen was with him as well in Congress, wasn't she? How did they respond to her? Because we all know that the Americans loved Diana so much, and that has always been a thorn in King Charles's side. We're used to Camilla now in the UK. I absolutely love her. I think I'd love to go for a gin and tonic with her. But I wonder how the Americans respond to her.
I mean, she was introduced into the room, you know, the king and queen introduced in the room. She came in elegant, she sat to his side, and she does the thing that she does best, which is really just sort of hold his hand and take him places. You know, she is the consort, but she doesn't take a leading role in these types of situations. And she just, you know, sat there and, you know, you almost didn't notice her had she not been sat on the stage.
So now they've done this. They're now at a big formal dinner later on this evening. Who is going to be attending that? Have you got a seat there, Caroline?
No, I've not. I know they had a garden party yesterday as well at the consulate, but I wasn't in town. I didn't get in till about midnight last night for this, so I just have focused on getting to this. And you know what? I think that my invite to the fancy dinner may have got lost in the post, but I'm not pushing my luck. I cannot tell you, I've had the most exciting day. Like I met Nancy Pelosi. Wow. I know you're not supposed to be all over excited about these things, but this is not my normal news beat. You know, so it is kind of fun to come and get a little moment like that. Yeah. And you know, going to Congress at any time, I would enjoy. I'm a bit of a politics nerd. I'd have enjoyed it. But getting to see your monarch in the country you've moved to, I felt very, very proud of that. And I had a lot of pride in the way that he conducted himself. You know, I think he was a bit bemused by all the applauding and the standing up and all the
I saw him at the end.
To be honest, I think that I can imagine him and Camilla just sitting down and being like, they really do applaud a lot.
Yeah, because even when they were trying to leave, there was all the people clamouring to shit like they were pop stars. I mean, and like you said, I suppose they are really in the US. So what King Charles now goes on, doesn't he? He has his dinner tonight, and what's happening with him tomorrow?
I think he's off to New York. I haven't got the exact schedule in front of me, but I think he's going to New York because he talked about in his speech about paying respects to those who lost their lives in 9/11 and the
that's
first
right,
responders and all the people that helped. So he talked about that as being, you know, the next stop, because of course it's 25 years since 9/11 as well. I mean, goodness me.
I absolutely, I remember that day. Like,
Yep.
I was doing first week of doing a breakfast show, and it was on the Wednesday morning of the breakfast show that I had to do that story. So I remember it like it was yesterday. It was me and Simon Bates.
Yes.
Holding that down. That was very, I mean, I will never forget it.
That's a surreal
Yeah.
vision.
Yeah, me and Simon Bates, we were a great team actually. But yeah, so he's going to go and do that. And for you now, what are you going to do? Are you hanging out in Washington? Are you going to go and?
Yeah, I fly back quite early, at like 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'm going to go and potter about and taking things, and I might get around to having something to eat. But it was such an I tell you what, I really was a take home for me. I just walked into like where all these congressmen are. You get your bag checked, obviously, all that kind of thing, but you could just walk up to their doors and knock on the door, any of them. I mean, granted, you might not necessarily get to see them, they might be busy with something, but they are all accessible. You could walk into there. It's kind of a cross, and then there's a load of tunnels that I went in underneath to kind of I never came back outside to get into the Capitol. So I went into a bit like if you've gone into Parliament, they have the same where you go into Portcullis House and then you go under. But each member of Congress has got their office in there, and you can walk up to the door of any of them and knock on that door and walk in.
I mean, that is extraordinary. But we saw that, didn't we? See that on January 6th when people, those rioters were actually just going into the offices. Because they are so accessible.
I have a picture I'll show you of me stood on the Speaker's balcony from today.
Do you know what, Caroline? I'd have been exactly the same as you, because I'd have been a nerd about that as well. I would love to have been there.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see it.
It was wonderful from a news point of view, but from a personal point of view, it was a once in a lifetime.
Yeah, I'm a little bit gel, actually. A little bit jelly.
Well, I'm happy to share it with you.
Well, thank you for sharing it, and it's always wonderful to see you, and that backdrop is just extraordinary, isn't it? I mean,
I'm sorry, I want to just tip this so you can see the top.
Oh yeah,
look at that.
Yeah, that is a sight that everybody around the world knows.
Much more familiar if you can see the dome, but I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the angle right.
It's perfect, as are you. Caroline, thank you very much indeed for covering that for us. Caroline Faraday there, award-winning journalist for us in Washington, D.C. I've got to take a quick break, but I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. And coming up at midnight, we're going to be discussing the Tony Blair Institute. And I honestly, I wish Tony Blair would just bog off, frankly. But anyway, we're discussing we're discussing, that's personal, that we're discussing his think tank. And the Tony Blair's Institute proposed a regime that new laws would automatically rule that non-work limiting conditions such as anxiety, depression and ADHD would no longer attract cash benefits. Let me say that again. Non-work limiting conditions such as anxiety, depression and ADHD would no longer attract cash benefits. Now, the reason I wanted to repeat that is because I almost want to say, how dare you say that everybody with those conditions, that it is non-work limiting? Because I know there are people with crippling anxiety, absolutely devastating depression for whom work is not possible. So I want to hear that from you. It's all very well me saying that, but I want to hear from you about your mental health condition or the mental health condition of somebody that you love and you care for. And tell me if it's non-work limiting. Because I think that I get that we need to bring the benefits bill down. It's a disaster. And if we don't bring it down, it's going to collapse and everyone will lose, right? Everybody will lose out because it cannot continue. But to say a blanket expression like non-work limiting conditions such as anxiety, depression and ADHD will no longer attract cash benefits, I think that is pretty dangerous. But I want to hear it from you. I want to hear how work limiting your or somebody you know's mental health condition is. Can they really not work? What would help them get back to work? I just think a blanket, absolutely anyone with that condition, you can work, you're fine. You got depression, oh, go on, go back to work, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. A job will help you. And what about, I don't know, anxiety? You're too anxious to leave the house? Rubbish. Come on, off you go. Get back to work. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I often am, and I'm happy to admit it. But I'd like to hear from you, your experience of your mental health condition that you say you cannot work with. And could you prove it medically? Because the other thing is also to say that you need to prove it. How do you prove a mental health condition? That has always been the problem, hasn't it? So, I want to hear your stories. I want to hear from you. Do you think this is reasonable? And maybe you're somebody who does think, well, actually, anxiety, you can go to work with that. I've been anxious. I've gone to work. So I want to hear it from all angles. Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And it's always difficult to tell sometimes when you're a bit of a politics nerd whether a political story really matters to you as much as we think it might do. I think we have a tendency to be a bit sort of, I don't know, a bit inward looking, a bit Westminster focused sometimes. So I'm trying to understand really about the Mandelson deal, the Mandelson story, and how much people really care about that. I think that a lot of people want to see Keir Starmer hurt. They want to see him gone. But is it really because of this Mandelson story? So in that regard, I'm not sure that the Tories have got this right. I'm not sure that we've got it right in banging on about it all the time. But today, the MPs voted on a major investigation that the Tories wanted to have into the appointment of Lord Mandelson. But they voted against. 335 to 223 against that Tory-led motion calling for a parliamentary investigation. And this comes obviously after Mandelson apparently failed his security checks in early 2025. What did Keir Starmer know? When did he know it? Etc., etc. And just this morning, Morgan McSweeney, who fell on his sword, did it again, really, today, admitted to lawmakers that it was his fault. He shouldn't have recommended Mandelson for the job. And while Mandelson was fired last September over his past links to Epstein, he's now under police investigation for allegedly leaking government documents. So I'm just fascinated, really, to see if anybody's got this right. Do we really care about this story, and why should we care? There's also some breaking news I need to ask Ryan about, and that is about Keir Starmer apparently offering Angela Rayner a return to cabinet, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Ryan Saby joins me now, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun. Gosh, Ryan, lovely to see you again. I mean, a minute is too long in politics at the moment. The story's dropping left and right. Let's start with this the Mandelson story and this vote today. Are we too focused on this as journalists, as being this big scandal and sleaze? Does the rest of the country agree with that?
I think we just have to. I think the best thing to probably do is look at it in the big picture and what it means for Keir Starmer. Is this going to damage him? And I think the drip effect doesn't really help his chances. I think we can all say that, you know, journalists or not, the fact that there was this serious issue over the failed vetting procedure that didn't come to light, or did come to light, wasn't raised with Keir Starmer, whichever way you want to look at it. Was a big story and deserved investigation and deserved journalists like myself to actually look at the detail and hold those to account. But I think at the moment we're very, very much in the weeds of the story. We're very, very much in the detail. And if you haven't got anything to do at home all day, and you can spend hours and hours watching committee proceedings. Fantastic. That's what our job is to do, to try and analyse that and interpret that for people at home. But we are, I think, at the moment in the minutiae. And I was speaking to a Labour MP today who said they know that the Prince Andrew angle of all of this, when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, that the public do take note of that, and they are taking sort of notice of the big Mandelson interventions. But when it comes to sort of the nitty gritty and the detail, who said what to whom, I think that's a very, very different matter. And I think you can look at the evidence of pretty much everyone over the last few weeks, whether it's Morgan McSweeney, Sir Keir Starmer in the Commons, Oliver Robbins, Philip Barton, who's those two top civil servants who are former civil servants. I think you can take a little bit from everyone, and there's no real smoking gun from all the detail that we've heard in the sort of last 24, 48 hours.
The Tories will be disappointed, won't they, by this vote that went against them. Of course, we know what they were hoping to achieve, right? They wanted to put Keir Starmer on the hot coals.
Yeah, that's right. What I think some Conservative MPs remember Boris Johnson when he was put before that Privileges Committee and the big Partygate investigation. I think deep down they sort of thought, well, we're going to get Sir Keir Starmer on this, and we're going to get him in front of the committee. Several appearances they can go through line by line and just work out exactly what he said. Put his feet to the fire on that. Now, I think the big problem for the Conservatives was it was seen as a sort of nakedly political stunt. And I think the reason for that is you've got the local elections in just 10 days or so. And I think it was just kind of seen in that context. And I think it was far too easy for senior sort of Labour politicians like, Labour grandees like Lord Blunkett to come out and just say that, Keir Starmer is trying to deal with Britain, in a war situation with what's going on in the Middle East, and lots of MPs weighing in and saying they're only doing this because they're thinking about local elections. They're only thinking about saying the local candidate, the local council, the local Labour Party, look what they're trying to do. They're trying to stop Sir Keir Starmer coming before this Privileges Committee. So I think there was just too much politics in it at this time.
Yeah, and it seems like a dumb move by the Tories, actually, because they just don't need to do anything right now, because it looks like with those elections that this is going to be a bloodbath anyway, that it almost seems to be too much that the Tories are trying to do.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to look out for. This Mandelson story certainly isn't going away. You've got a new tranche of documents that are going to be coming out after the King's speech as well. So we'll be pouring through those again. And I think when it comes to the elections, it's going to be a pretty rough night for the Labour Party. There's talk of them losing around 1,900 council seats up and down the country, which could be absolutely devastating. But it's not going to be a very good night for the Conservatives either. The winners of the night will be Reform and the Green Party doing well up and down the country. But for those two, our two old traditional parties who've, been those standard bearers of being in government over the past, generations and generations, it's going to be a brutal night. So Kemi Badenoch can do as much as she can in the Commons, but she's going to be a victim when it comes to those local elections in a week or so's time.
Well, it's worth mentioning the Lib Dems as well, though, isn't it? I think that Ed Davey, I like him. I like how he talks in the Commons. I like what he says. He's pretty down the line. So the Lib Dems may be able to mop up the votes who don't want to go all the way Green or don't want to go all the way Reform. They're a sort of safe middle ground, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. And I think one thing, the tactics that the Lib Dems do is they really, really focus on where they have got a stronghold. So whether that's a local council or whether it's in the sort of 70 sort of seats, the parliamentary seats that they've got, they really focus their time. They concentrate on just a few key issues when it comes to their parliamentary time. You'll hear Ed Davey continuously talk about Donald Trump. He thinks having that anti-Trump agenda plays really well for him. He will talk about issues such as care issues for children, and he's very much personally affected by that. Social care is another issue that he talks about. So he tends to stick to those subjects, but they tend to fight really local campaigns. So you may not hear too much of them sort of getting involved in the nitty gritty day to day, but they are fighting those elections on the doorsteps. And I actually live in a Lib Democrat seat, and I got a letter from my MP just the other day taking note of what's going on in my road and some potholes. So they really do
But that
really
does
take
matter, right? That's what that's actually what we care about. That's really what we care about. Ryan, this is interesting. It just dropped about 40 minutes ago that Keir Starmer's privately offered Angela Rayner, not that private, clearly, but privately offered Angela Rayner a return to cabinet. This is an inside the tent as opposed to outside of the tent situation, is it? And how does that make him look more desperate?
Well, I think Sir Keir Starmer, when it comes to after those local election results, I think we take it as read that it's going to be a bad night. So what's his maybe his last throw of the dice? Is it a cabinet reshuffle? Who does he move? He's got some big problems when it comes to immigration. Shabana Mahmood is looking at some moves on how long people have to be in this country before they can have indefinite leave to remain. That's upset a lot of people in the Labour Party. Does he try to move her? But one thing that he will do, because he's got to try and placate what we call the soft left within the Labour Party, those who like Angela Rayner. Well, what does he do? Does he try and bring her back? Does he try and maybe move David Lammy? He's currently holding that Deputy Prime Minister job. Does he try and bring her back into the tent to such an extent that she tries to sort of prop him up? Now, if you look at it, it looks like Sir Keir Starmer really is on borrowed time. But how does he try and extend his premiership? And I think a few things kind of have to happen for Sir Keir Starmer to leave. He has to be in a really, really perilous position. He's in a terrible position, it is, but it has to get a lot worse. I also think you have to have cabinet ministers who are prepared to walk away, prepared to resign and have that domino effect. I also think the MPs themselves have to want him to go. They have to get behind, when the herd moves, who do they get behind?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it, Ryan? Yeah. That there isn't anyone. I mean, even Angela Rayner, she may be popular, but I don't think that she would get the full backing. And plus, there is a world stage situation going on at the moment. There is a war going on. There is a crisis happening. And who, to be honest with you, I don't know who would want that job right now. But there isn't really a successor. Andy Burnham can't, unless somebody gives them their seat to run for. So it's not what's going to happen there.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult. You just wonder whether Sir Keir Starmer is trying to buy himself a bit of time, bring Angela Rayner back, and maybe some sort of contest in about a year's time where maybe Sir Keir just throws it in the towel. But I think it's not a great look for Labour to change leader now, because I think 2 years into a parliament, 2 years into that government, people can just turn around and say, well, you're just like the Conservatives.
Exactly.
They were changing Prime Minister every 5 minutes. So I think they need a little bit of distance from that. I think maybe 4 years into a parliament, you can, realistically say, well, Keir Starmer can say, well, I'm gonna leave being Prime Minister, Downing Street now. I've been Labour leader since 2020. I've done 7 or 8 years. I feel like I've done my time and I can hand over to the next person. But as you say, Wes Streeting, has his moment gone? Many people thought that his moment was there at the beginning of the year when Anis Sarwar said that the Scottish Labour leader said that Sir Keir Starmer should step down. Angela Rayner, is she ready? Andy Burnham hasn't got a seat. Or do you give it to, maybe a caretaker Prime Minister, someone like John Healey or Yvette Cooper? I think there are just so many questions up in the air. There is just no certainty. And I think when you're in that situation, sometimes it's better, the Labour MPs might think it's better to stick rather than twist.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's certainly a lot of twisting going on. And I wonder if that will calm Angela Rayner's battle for the top seat by being pulled back in. We will wait to find out. Ryan, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Ryan Sabey there, who's the Deputy Political Editor at The Sun, which is just a couple of floors down below from where I'm sitting. Right, quick break. Back to talk about your holidays in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. It is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. Now, if you are planning your summer holiday, I hope that you waited until we managed to speak to Simon Calder, a travel correspondent at The Independent, because I read his piece today, brilliant piece, Simon. I learned so much from it because I was all doom and gloom. But actually, with the jet fuel crisis, we know that there's been a lot of routes that have been cancelled. People are scared that if they go on holiday, will there be enough fuel where they're going to land, like Cyprus, for example, which is one that you use, to get home again. So there's a lot of people unsure. The Prime Minister has even said you might want to rethink your holidays, which is probably not very helpful. So what is the situation? What do we do?
Oh, Petrie, so nice to talk to you. And you are absolutely right. There is an awful lot of confusion and anxiety out there. And I'm sorry to say that the Prime Minister's intervention saying, oh, you might have to rethink your holiday.
Not helpful.
What are you supposed to make of that?
I know.
It reminds me, actually, and you and I will have talked, of course, 5 years ago during the COVID crisis, when you had ministers standing up saying, oh, you wouldn't be going on holiday if I were you. That is completely the wrong message. And certainly what I have been discovering is that there's never really been a better summer to get away. You can buy your tickets now. You can relax knowing that the air passenger rights rules are on your side. And I was just looking for the piece I was researching. It's kind of you to mention it and to read it. But I'm looking at flying, for example, from Luton, lovely Luton Airport, to Mykonos, which some people say is even more exotic and beautiful than Luton Airport.
No.
Lovely Greek island. Any day pretty much in July and August for £55
Wow.
one way. That is just mad. I mean, at this time of year, it should be 3 times that. So people are reluctant to book. The airlines have got, well, the expanding number of flights. We're just going into May, and May the 1st, traditionally the big day, start of the summer holidays. The airlines will, or summer season, airlines put on lots of new flights. We've got at least 9 new flights starting. So yeah, well, you're quite right that flights are being cancelled in some places. They're not affecting the great British holiday yet. And I would book with confidence knowing that you'll either get your holiday or the airline will need to sort it out, or you'll get a full refund. So it's a really, really good time to
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to go over for me, is the fact that once you've booked a flight, an airline cannot simply cancel and say, sorry, we can't afford to run it. It's not happening. We haven't got enough fuel. Here's your... They can't say that. So what do they have to do? Once you've booked, because a lot of people will be delaying booking, waiting to see what happens with the fuel crisis. But your suggestion is to book because then you're protected.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the flight I've bought to Mykonos, because it was very cheap, I'm absolutely aware that if I get a message a couple of weeks beforehand from the airline saying, sorry, we're not operating your flight, bluntly, we haven't got enough fuel, and therefore we're cancelling the ones with, lowest potential for making money on, I'll just say, well, that's fine. British Airways, EasyJet flying on the same day, book me a ticket on one of those and I'll be happy. And they've got to do that. It's not a question of, very often, a lot of people will find that the airline will say, oh, have all your money back. There you are. Cancel your flight, have all your money back, and we'll call it quits. No, they can't do that. They've got to give you the flight.
Wow, I did not know that. So they have to then pay British Airways more than you've paid them, potentially?
Yes. Now, it probably won't come to that. So if you take an airline like EasyJet, just suppose they were told they've got to save 1/5 of their fuel, or either there was an instruction or the airlines decided that was what they were going to do. They are not going to cancel the once a day flight to Mykonos. They're going to cancel, oh well, we've got 6 flights a day from London to Nice in France, so let's take 1 or 2 of those out of the schedule. We'll move the people onto nearby flights. There's other things that would happen long before your holiday flight is affected. For instance, there's an incredible amount of domestic aviation between London and Scotland, and if you just said, okay, excuse me, would half the people who are travelling by air, can you shift onto the train? That would be slightly annoying, but they could do it perfectly happily, and you can save that fuel for other people. So there's lots of possible solutions, and certainly talking, as I was yesterday, to the boss of Wizz Air, the 3rd biggest low-cost airline in Europe, he was saying, that we're not getting fuel out of the Gulf of Hormuz, out of the Strait of Hormuz, obviously, but so high is the price that people are being creative and coming up with other sources, and therefore we're not seeing any shortage.
And it's interesting, though, isn't it, that the confusion with this is quite normal, I would say, for us, because what we're seeing is an immediate response to the cost of our petrol and diesel at the pumps. We're seeing it immediately rise. So many people will be under the impression that flights will do the same, that they will suddenly skyrocket because we see it at the pumps. But is that not the case?
No, it certainly isn't, partly because the fare for a flight, in the short term at least, is whatever the market will bear, and at the moment that's not very much at all, but also because people flying this summer will be flying using fuel at last year's prices, because the airlines, pretty much all of them, hedged most of their fuel requirements. That basically means they're taking a bet. They're saying, we're going to lock into fuel at a particular price. We'll make sure that we have our costs constant. Now, sometimes you can lose out. The price of oil sometimes falls, but in this case the price of aviation fuel has almost doubled, and most of the airlines are protected for most of their flying, and that means you're flying around perfectly happily at rates which are last year's. Now, when we are going to see problems is getting into September, October, and through the winter. When
they start the new round of purchasing.
Partly that, and all the hedges start to unwind. Sorry, that's a difficult phrase to get your head around, but basically there's less and less fuel that they've locked into a low price, and therefore once you get to the winter, I think we're going to see an incredible number of flights of aircraft sitting on the ground because it won't be worth flying them anywhere. And for the flights which are operating, the prices will increase steeply. So it's a bit like 2019. If you go back to that golden year, best ever year for travel for British travellers, at least in terms of wide horizons, low prices. It feels a bit like that right now, and certainly I think going into next year, if the prices remain high, we'll see less choice and higher fares, because that's, I'm afraid, the way that the airlines operate. They don't want to fly at a loss, and if you've got, for instance, Lufthansa cancelling 20,000 flights, well, they're doing that because those flights are now unprofitable with aviation fuel so expensive, but also the more flights they cancel, the fewer seats there are, and therefore the price for those that remain increases. So it's a kind of win-win in a curious sort of way.
We are seeing some airlines, though, aren't we, trying to make money in other ways, that they're not putting it on your ticket price, but there will be a cost somewhere along the line. Is there any way of avoiding those?
Well, look, the best example of that is Lufthansa coming up today. They just launched a product called Basic Economy, where the piece of cabin baggage that you are allowed to take is, yeah, it's a bit bigger and a bit heavier than a packet of crisps, but not much. It's absolutely the minimum size. And they say, yeah, of course, yeah, if you want to take a bit more, that's fine. You're just going to have to pay for it. And these so-called ancillaries are a pain if you wish to avoid, for instance, the ancillary costs of booking a seat so that you're sitting near loved ones. Then actually most of the airlines will do that for nothing. British Airways, EasyJet. And if you want to take lots of cabin baggage, I will point you towards BA, because they allow 2 chunky pieces of cabin baggage, combined weight 46 kilograms. So there are ways around it. And look, it is a great time to be a traveller. So make the most of it. Book your holidays, fly without fear, because ultimately they need to look after you. If they cancel a flight, it is definitively their problem and not yours.
That is such a fantastic bit of news. Simon, as ever, thank you very much indeed. Happy travels to Mykonos. I hope you get there. Simon Calder there, who is the travel correspondent at The Independent. Coming up in just a few moments' time, we'll be going through the front pages of the papers with Claire Muldoon.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. Coming up in an hour, of course, it is going to be Talkback. And it's your chance to do exactly that. And I want to talk to you about this story. This is the Tony Blair Institute has called for a block on people with anxiety, depression and ADHD claiming benefits, highlighting a rift with Labour over welfare reform. Now, under this institute's proposed regime, new laws would automatically rule that what they call non-work limiting conditions such as anxiety, depression and ADHD would no longer attract cash benefits. So in their view, conditions such as anxiety, depression and ADHD are non-work limiting. They don't limit you at all. You should just get over it and get to work. And there will be a lot of people who agree with that. They go, oh, people are faking it. I know people who are faking it. And I'm sure there are people who are faking it. But I'm also sure there are people who are not faking it. I'm sure there are people whose anxiety is debilitating and work limiting. I'm sure there are people whose depression prevents them from getting out of bed, let alone getting out of the front door to go to a job. I am convinced that there are people who are very poorly and very much in need of benefits with anxiety, depression and ADHD. Am I convinced that everybody does? No. But how do you prove it? And this is part of the problem. It's like the old thing, backache, isn't it? You can't prove there's, you know, if there's nothing on an X-ray or an MRI, there's no proof. You just have to say, well, I'm suffering with it, so I need benefits. So a couple of questions for you at midnight. How work limiting is your mental health condition? Do you believe that actually people with anxiety or depression should just get over it, that just get out to work, it will help? I mean, I'm sure that is the case in a lot of cases, but not in all. And my concern is always throwing the baby out with the bathwater. My concern is always punishing the innocent because the guilty are taking advantage. There's always an issue of people lying to get benefits. There's always been an issue of people fibbing about back pain or whatever else they may say that they've got that can't easily be proved. But it was a decision made in this country that we were going to put mental health alongside, on par with physical health in terms of help and support that you get in this country. Was that the wrong decision? Should there have been more investigation before that was decided? I don't know. But what I want to know from you is, could you go to work? Simple as that. Your mental health condition, why can't you go to work? What is it that stops you from going to work? Why do you have to rely on benefits? Or somebody that you care for, somebody that you love, or you know is signed off for mental health conditions. ADHD and caring for somebody with ADHD is now the single biggest reason that people are getting benefits. So again, how debilitating? I suppose it's on a scale though, isn't it? Because a lot of people with ADHD are perfectly able to work. In fact, they're probably brilliant at some jobs. Other people with ADHD at the other end of the scale probably can't work. So who decides where the scale is? Who decides? You can't just blanket say that anxiety, depression and ADHD are non-work limiting, that they don't limit your chance of working, of getting a job, of keeping a job. So I want to examine that with you. I want you to call me and tell me about your mental health condition. Does it really stop you working? And if it does, what would help you get back to work? What would do that for you? So that's what we're going to be talking about. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. So let me know about your mental health condition or the mental health condition of somebody in your world, and let me know, could they be working? Should they be working? So give me a call on that. I'd love to talk to you about that. Now, joining me right now is, I've got to prepare myself, get my breath right for this. Claire Muldoon.
Hi, Petrie. How are you?
I'm extremely well. How are you?
I'm really well. Thank
Good.
you very much.
I'm very, very pleased to hear it.
Good.
What do you make of what the Blair Institute is saying now?
Well, there's a lot to unpack. I mean, clearly our welfare bill is high,
Yeah.
and we need people back into the workplace because there's a direct correlation between being active, working, and indeed positive impacts on mental health thereof. So it is a very good thing to get people into work. It's good for the economy, but moreover, it's been proven that it's actually good for people that exhibit mental health conditions and have been diagnosed as having mental health conditions. Now, we know there is a far greater number of people with mental health conditions now than there has actually ever been. That's not to say those conditions weren't prevalent. All I'm saying is it's now being diagnosed and used for the benefit system in order for them to live because they can't work. But I do think that where the Blair Institute is correct is for those reasons, not in spite of them, for those reasons, I think it's essential that people do get into work and do the jobs that they possibly can do, or in fact that they're actually trained to, or perhaps extra training will help them. But let's not forget, the new workers' reform bills that are now in will actually enable anyone from day one to take sick days off. So they are protected if they do work, and if they don't work, then they'll get a lot less money on benefits. So I'd say you're better off getting a job every day of the week.
But I agree with you. Look, we know that the welfare bill cannot continue on the trajectory it's going. It will collapse, and then everyone will lose out, right? This is unsustainable. There's going to be more than half of the population on some form of benefit within it. I think they already are actually on some form of support. So it cannot be afforded by other. I mean, a lot of people on benefits also work, right? But what they take out is probably more than what they put in terms of tax, because if they're getting those benefits, then they're on low pay. So that circle doesn't square either. So I do accept that decisions have got to be made about this. But just to blanket say that conditions such as anxiety, depression and ADHD are non-work limiting, I think is dangerous, because there will be people on a scale, like I'm saying,
of course there will be,
that literally can't move for some horrendous depression or terrible anxiety. They can't even leave the house. So any sort of blanket decision concerns me.
I don't. That's not what I read from that proposal. I read from that, and I took from that if you can, it's far better to go into work than not. And we would urge you, and we'd actually encourage you to do it, to get into work. Now, I don't think for 1 minute any woman, especially with very severe postpartum depression, would be in that. She has to be cared for, as does her child.
It does say that under the Blair Institute's proposed regime, new laws would automatically rule that non-work limiting conditions such as anxiety, depression and ADHD would no longer attract cash benefits.
Yes, that's the blanket term for people suffering from a form of mental disorder. Yeah. And I think if you were to probe deeper, and I think if the clinician was to turn around and tell the Department of Working Pensions, this patient of mine really cannot go into the workplace because of X, Y, and Z, then that person would still be protected.
Yes, I agree. That would happen, Claire. But we're then looking at a system that would require face-to-face assessment. It would require more GPs to get involved at that level, and GPs don't like to get involved at that level. They just want to just be a GP. But they're, and they're saying that these people would have to prove that their condition meant they couldn't work. And again, with a mental health condition, it's very difficult to prove, because you're up and down, right? Some days you could manage, other days you just can't. You get a job and you can't work. There's also no blood test
for it. There's also no blood test for mental illness.
Exactly. So how do you prove it?
It's completely subjective. Well,
if you're forced to prove it, and there is no proof, you're then forced back into work.
I think there will be a sliding scale, and I think if you were to speak to any psychologist whether it be educational psychologist or a therapist in terms of a normal psychologist, or even a psychiatrist, they would say exactly the same thing. They have got their own way of judging what's happening when they look at the holistic case and they look at the patient all around, environmentally, physically, and most importantly, mentally. Now, we know that the diagnosis of ADHD has completely and utterly increased, almost exponentially year on year, with children especially getting diagnosis. Now, we see parents pushing for their children to be diagnosed, because if they're labelled, then they can get extra benefits. Yeah. Or indeed, if they are labelled, then they get what's known as a SEND certificate, which means then when the parent takes the child to see different schools, they can actually leapfrog over postcode lottery, sibling policy, and what's the other one? Proximity. They can actually leapfrog all over that to get a place in the school that they want. So it'll be children in care, then children with special educational needs, siblings, and then the rest of the criteria would follow on. So there are reasons, but we need to look at the reasons why parents feel the need to label their child. Back in our day, I'm sure we would just tell our kids to stop fidgeting. And I know that's very basic and it's very primitive of me to say things like that. But there are kids out there with severe Tourette's. There are kids out there that are just naughty, that just need, to be told, like, stay still, behave, instead of, oh, I think there's something wrong with them. Do you think there's something wrong with them? Oh, they're behind. Some kids are lazy. Some kids develop a lot later in life than other children. A lot of kids are more in tune with what's happening in their environment. And there's loads of factors that can afford a change in a child's development.
I completely agree. And I think it is overdiagnosed.
Yes, and domestically, we have to reach out to those families that need help domestically. Is the child coming home to either parent or a carer in the home? If there isn't, why not make it easier for the parent, to be present, to be with the child, to educate the child? And we are, as parents, the primary educators. We don't need, clearly in society, we do have a need for expert guidance and teaching and all of this, because what I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis is neglecting parents' responsibility, abdicating the responsibility, because I'll tell you why, Petrie. The government are saying, we'll feed your kids in the morning. We actually think that if a child doesn't speak English by the time it starts primary school, that's okay. In fact, if it wants to wear a nappy, we can. We're even getting rid of school uniforms. So the parents are like, well, what is my role? What do I do? Everything, it would appear, is being taken away from the parent. And what's been left then? Nothing. An absolute maze. It's tumbleweed, coming up the school playground, instead of kids, chatting away, having a laugh, being dropped off by their carer or their parent, to go to school, to learn how to interact with humans, with adults, with their fellow pupils, with older pupils, with younger pupils, with kids that are, might need a bit of help. That's why I'm so against streaming as well. I think cream does rise to the top, and the best educator for a child is their friendship, is another child, because it roughs the edges off them.
Yeah, all of that, I absolutely agree with you. And there is a problem here, and I don't think it is as simple as just saying a certain cohort of people just don't get benefits anymore. No. And I am livid with the nanny state. I can't bear it, as you know. I want small government. I hate this big government involved in all of our lives. And I think that just does help parents to abdicate their responsibility and go, well, the teachers will deal with that. I'm not going to bother.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Teeth brushing in the morning.
All done at school, everything. I mean, it is crackers, but it is a sort of systemic issue. It's a huge problem that has to be unpicked, and easy solutions don't work. There's solutions like this.
Well, I think what that will do is tip an awful lot of people over the edge, and that's what we must be mindful of.
Yeah.
You know, if we're following on that metaphor of mental health, is we really need to be mindful of that. But also, why are people feeling so hopeless? Why can't we have, when I know why we are, because there's a dreadful world in which we're living in, but I think that needs to be addressed. We need to give, you know, hope to people, hope that things will get better, hope that, you know, cities will get friendlier, will get, you know, and we won't be pitting people off each other. Every person is a human being, whether they're here illegally or not, right? But
Yeah,
again,
we've got to stop. I agree.
We're going back to the elections. We're having the elections next week on May the 7th. And the fourth most important point for people in this country, which is understandable, is that of illegal immigration and asylum seekers and refugees.
Yeah. I think you should be Prime Minister. I'll be your deputy.
We've spoken about this before. There's just no way either of us can actually take that mantle on. We'd be, I mean, Mandelson would be the least of our worries, would be the least of the country's worries, Petrie, if we were in charge, my love.
I know.
And as for those beavers and those squirrels, oh my God, would have PETA banging on the door.
I know, it would
We'd be
be
wearing them as earrings.
It would be, it would be a disaster. Squirrel earrings. I'm totally up for that. Claire, we've got to take a quick break, but we'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good evening to you. This is Talk, and it's Petrie, and with me is the fabulous Claire Muldoon. Claire, the Times newspaper. We have to talk about this vote that happened earlier that the Tories wanted. They put forward this motion. Labour MPs were whipped to clear. Always sounds a bit saucy, that, but they were whipped to clear Starmer. Feel complicit in a cover-up, and in fact, Kemi Badenoch is saying that you are part of the cover-up to these MPs. What do you think about the whipping system, forcing an MP to vote in a certain direction?
I think it puts a mirror up to that MP and shows the true colours, whether that be red, pale blue, blue, yellow, green, or whatever. And I think it's a very important tool, a very public tool almost, to show the leaders both of every single party what the temperature is actually like within their party, within the elected members of their party that are there to represent us at grassroots level on all the major litigation aspects of crime, punishment, education, health, transport, money, everything across the board. It's a very, very important tool, I think.
I mean, I've always questioned how MPs are whipped. I also question how they
that's
are.
for another story. That's for another
story.
website.
Yeah, that was the sleaze of the old days, wasn't it? It was Madam Whiplash. They were the thing. But the whipping system feels anti-democratic to me.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, it feels like I want MPs, because of their job is to the grassroots, as you were saying, to vote with their conscience and with their constituents. And I want MPs to never be allowed to abstain as well, because we pay them to vote. We pay them to make decisions. And if you're not making a decision based off your own conscience, then where does that leave us when we look at our MPs? If every vote was whipped, for example, what would be the point in having an MP? So I just don't agree with it as a democratic tool.
So as you know, some of the votes are whipless. So it's conscientious.
I think they all should be.
I quite like the idea of them being whipped, of them being told what to do, because it really does. 53 abstained. 100 voted yes, but that was mostly Conservatives. But was it 12 or something? Forgive me, I couldn't make out.
15 in total that went against the party.
The Conservatives, so went against. So Starmer knows who they are. He also knows that Anna Samwar turned up in his Trojan horse. Unfortunately for him, he was the only one in it. To say to Starmer at the time, look, I think, mate, you've had your chips now. Your time's up. And now he's got 15 more. And in one of the other papers, which we'll touch on, they will be punished. And after the May 7th elections, we've got it is proposed that there will be a cabinet reshuffle the next Saturday of that. So I just wonder, and one of the other papers, but we'll touch on in a minute, Angela Rayner might be coming back into the fold. You know, it's a cesspit, isn't it? Really,
it really is.
Would you really want to get mixed up in all that? Seeing Philip Burton today, and the sacking of Ollie, what's his name?
Morgan McSweeney.
No, Ollie
Robinson. Ollie Roberts.
Ollie Robbins. You just think, my goodness me, and if he wasn't sacked, I don't think we would have had half the drama that we've had today. Starmer's really brought this all on his own.
Yeah,
I said lack of judgment.
I said this yesterday. I said I just cannot believe how he keeps making disastrous decisions one after the other. He has got the unnerving ability to punch himself in the face. I mean, but he does, doesn't he? He just does it all the time. It's like, stop it now.
I mean,
just bad decision after bad decision. He's now got the blob against him, the civil service. They're all up in arms about their treatment, and it is an absolute mess. But to bring Angela Rayner back in really does show how worried he is about.
It also shows you that she's not worried about what HMRC will say.
No.
And apparently that ruling is out at the end of this week. So that's going to be really interesting. And now there is another, I think from one of the by-elections that's coming up, Labour might lose, or it might become vacant. Who's that vacant for? Andy Burnham,
Andy Burnham.
Of course.
Yeah, I read that earlier
on
as well.
Big chess. Yeah. It's a big chessboard.
Well, there's going to be a lot of MPs out of constituency work from next week. There's talk of 1,000. I think Ryan said 1,900 seats gone across the country.
Yeah, but they'll be taken up with other MPs though, from other parties.
But it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. Anyway, that's the whipping. The King and Trump forge a very special relationship. As the Trump there, the picture of him touching the King's knee. Oh, rude. What do we make of this?
Was that before or after he touched Melania's bum?
Bottom. I don't know. Anyway, King seems to be pulling off a bit of a blinder here.
I knew he would. We all knew he would.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that went through my head when I was watching what was unfolding at the journalists' party at the White House on Saturday night, in Washington at the Hilton, the first thing that came to my mind, my goodness me, the King will arrive in Washington on Monday. Wow. it must still go ahead, so it will go ahead. Second, how quickly the armed forces were brought in to do that. And thirdly, how resilient was Trump to give that press conference almost hours afterwards? It was bizarre. Absolutely
the whole thing was bizarre. The whole
so
thing.
I'm really pleased the King and the Queen are there. I think that we know Trump has got a huge soft spot for the British monarchy. He's got a huge soft spot for Scotland as well. And I think that needed to happen. And I think from the King's speech today, although from listening to it, when he mentioned the Magna Carta, and then he mentioned about the executive orders being cited from the past 400, whatever it was.
It was a bit pointed. He was.
It was very pointed.
I think it was. They're talking about democracy, and I went over their heads, I think. But a lot of it was, look, you've got to have more checks and balances. There's
yes,
the executive,
that was it.
Yeah, the executive orders have got. Yeah. There are 3 pillars of Congress. All of that. It was. Yeah. If he was saying that to me, I'd be going, "Oh, I've been naughty. I've done something wrong." Do you know what I mean? But I don't know whether
Trump's not going to think that. Trump's not going to think that. But the thing is, it's a global platform. It's a global stage, and it's a very important one, and it's one in which he's actually embraced it, and I'm really pleased that he has.
Yeah,
because he could have gone there quite mealy-mouthed and not said anything, but he's actually gone up a bit in my estimation, actually, to be fair.
We did this as a phone-in yesterday saying how should the King treat Trump? And a lot of people were saying, well, we hope he's going to be tougher than we think he's going to be.
Yeah, I think he has been.
And I think he probably has walked a very smart path, because if you read that speech as opposed to listen to it, it's kind of like goes, oh, that's on the money. Oh, that's a bit close to the knuckle. With him, almost preaching to the Americans about their behaviour, and saying things that what the Americans say matters. Referring to those early morning truth socials, all of that, the hate, and read
actions speak louder than words. Yeah, actually,
and there are consequences to what you say. I thought it was very interesting, but I think so far we will wait and see if Trump, brings down the rhetoric on.
What do you make of the current the current American ambassador making the quip that the US special relationship is probably Israel?
Idiot.
But who do you think will take over that job? And did you not think it quite funny today that we found out who Mandelson was actually up against? It was George Osborne.
Oh my God!
McSweeney kept saying, "Yeah, there were other people, but I just wasn't party to that. I wasn't part of it." And in the end, it came out that it was down to George Osborne or Mandelson.
Wow!
I know, right?
Sophie's choice.
Bring back Karen Pierce. She should never have been sacked off.
No, I agree.
It really should have been her.
I tell you who's impressed me though over this Mandelson stuff is Emily Thornberry.
She's a pantomime dame.
She is, but the way she's been running these meetings, I think she's been really stern and really reminds me of the old battle axe
matron.
Yes, I like that. It's like Betty Boothroyd.
Yeah,
that sort of. I think she's handled it really, really well. The other big story on the front of the Times is that the UAE, which is the world's 4th largest exporter of oil, is leaving OPEC, which is massively significant because OPEC is a club that sets the oil price around the world, to put it in really basic terms, as you know. And they were part of that, and they've said, we're leaving OPEC because we want to sell more oil than we're told, because they were told to limit the amount of oil they put out to keep the price up, or to increase the oil to bring the price down so it doesn't get too expensive, etc., etc. That could throw everything into chaos.
It will. OPEC is a cabal monopoly of oil.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And Saudi Arabia, UAE's nearest neighbour, produces the most crude oil in the world, and they're still in it. So it's the UAE are just like, do you know what?
We're not doing this anymore. Yeah.
It's almost as if they have been completely and utterly filtered by osmosis from all the West coming to places like Abu Dhabi, Dubai, etc., and they're actually now living more Westy ideals mostly.
But also UAE during all of this conflict with Iran has been one of the biggest, well, I can't think of the right word, but they've had the most bombs and stuff attacking them. They almost feel like they're outside of the club anyway. So I'm not surprised by this decision. But if they start setting prices, their own prices, and they're the fourth biggest exporter, and they've got lots more oil, it could really destabilise OPEC. And depending on what they choose to sell their oil in, because outside of OPEC, they can decide to sell it in yuan or gold or silver as the underlying currency.
It won't necessarily be dollar.
It won't necessarily be dollar. And that's one to watch. That is very interesting to watch. Right, we've got to take a quick break, but Claire and I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you and with me, Claire Muldoon. The Sun newspaper, I didn't watch any of this, but David Hay is to sue ITV for up to £10 million over claims of irreparable damage to his brand amid the All-Stars I'm a Celebrity fallout. What happened? Do you know?
Oh, I watched some of it, but a lot of it was retrospective watching and catching up with news headlines, which these programmes have an innate ability to draw. This was actually filmed in South Africa last year, over like 6 months ago from here. And the final was last Friday.
Right.
It was between, I think, Mo Farah and I can't remember who, and a guy called Simon Thomas, I think, or
Thompson.
One of the Thomas brothers. I think.
Right. Okay, the actor.
Yeah, there's three of them, Ryan, Martin, whatever. So one of them won it. But it was marred completely by a lot of fighting and jabbing verbally. David Hay, when he was in there, made some really, really, just really stupid comments. Like, well, ugly fat girls develop personality so that if they have their glow-up moments, then they become much better all-round people. And they're more likely to get a partner because they've been through it and they've had to develop their personality more than a girl who was born beautiful and had the figure for the whole time. She doesn't really have to try that hard. That was the basic of these conversations, and that was the basis of what David Hay was saying. Now, on top of that, Jimmy Bullard had to take on a Bush Tucker trial with the child. I wish I could remember his name. So the one of the Thomas brothers who won it ultimately. And what happened was they went in to do it, and the brother, one of the famous brothers, was really going for it, going through all the horrible trials they have to go through, getting covered with critters, and had to lie in muck and everything. And all Jimmy had to do, by all accounts, was take something and walk through a maze. Jimmy Bullard stood there almost at the start, didn't try. He said, "I'm a celebrity, get me out of here." And this one kicked off and really had a massive big temper tantrum. So I would say it's actually more than David Hay, whose brand has been tarnished with this.
But didn't they tarnish their own brand?
This is my point. But they would say, and they are saying, it's the way that ITV edited them to make them look worse than they actually were. But I'm sorry, the buck stops with you. You said these things. And it's like you or I, if we were on any other programme and we were clipped up for saying something without context, that's the difficulty. But when you're earning X amount of money for a fee,
exactly.
You're being flown out to a beautiful location. You've got 2 weeks of, putting up with stuff that people are actually living on a daily life. Come on, get over it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. People are too quick to sort of go, "Oh, I'm going to sue." Ridiculous. Anyway, I think if they bring it on themselves, I'm completely with you on that as well. Right, the Daily Telegraph quickly. Starmer offers to bring back Rayner. We know why. Enemies close and all that. Friends close, enemies closer. And the King has praised NATO in his speech as well. That was an interesting, pointed moment as well from him. So that's
quite like the nib. I quite like the nib down at the bottom of the Telegraph. Swearing ban is threat to freedom of speech. 1 in 5 councils, 20%, has introduced bans on swearing. I'll tell you that, we couldn't get a job there, nor could anyone that suffered from Tourette's. Can you imagine?
No, there's no... You know that swearing is my first language.
Yes,
I mean, it's a miracle. I mean, it is... I'm so lucky that in my brain there's a little switch that stops me from doing it when there's a red light anywhere near me.
100%.
100%. I mean, I'm effing and jeffing. It's my favourite thing to do. I love it. That is. And it's a brilliant form of speech as well. It can be.
Yeah.
It can be. I think it's a very useful thing to have.
Everyone will be swearing in their mother tongue in this country now. There'll be so many sweary words that people just don't understand that it'll become a bit of a moot point.
Yeah, so it's fine. Look, I think it's no, definitely couldn't work there. The Daily Express, you are part of the Mandelson cover-up. This is Kemi Badenoch slams Labour MPs for voting down the probe. The thing is, Kemi Badenoch, I think, is being a little bit too busy. She doesn't have to do anything at the moment. Just wait for the election next week.
No, but do you know what? I doff cap to her. Yeah. I'm really impressed. 14 years Labour were in opposition, didn't come up with a plan for anything, did they? No. They were quiet as church mice. At least she's giving it some. At least she's earning her buck. At least she's turning up and pointing her finger. And she's the one that actually has pushed Starmer to show us how much a rudderless ship that he's actually running. Well done, Kemi. That's what I say.
I mean, she's definitely grown into her boots, hasn't she?
Absolutely.
Yeah, really has. The Daily Mail, again, a picture of the King, and Labour revolt over Starmer's sleaze cover-up. It says 14, but I've got 15. I don't know why, but 14 MPs side with the Tories and dozens abstain in the Mandelson vote. They'll be having the whip removed from them, won't they? Or they won't be getting money for that school they wanted, or stuff like that. The Metro, face facts. Op can't turn you into an AI pick. What?
This is a funny story. There's a surgeon that says that, look, guys, stop putting all these filters through your faces because you're presenting to surgeons like myself to say, I want to look like that, and you look stupid. You look, the amount of damage will be done will be irrevocable, and you will just not an irreversible, and you just need to stop it. I mean, it's ridiculous. I can't turn you into an AI pick, is what he's saying. Can you imagine that?
That is ridiculous. I mean, I don't
Can
know.
you imagine going to the doctors now and say, look, I want to look like that?
No, I'm just ridiculous. I mean, it's hard enough when you go with a haircut you like. You never get the same one. But you know, with all these face ops and things that the operations people are having, it's so young now. Girls are having facelifts.
Petrie, have you never wondered when all these daft bints go away to Turkey, right, to get a facelift done? They won't look anything like their passport picture.
When they come back.
You tell me how they get back into the country. Go figure.
There should be an idiot tax, really, shouldn't there?
Absolutely.
But I don't know why anybody would want to look like that. I mean, it's interesting you talk about looks. I've got a couple of messages from Gary here. One I'll read at the top of the show, at the top of the hour. But this one, Gary says, a 2-year-old clip of you came up on my YouTube, and I'm wondering what cream you're using. You're aging backwards, and you've lost a lot of weight. You're rocking it, girl. So I don't think I'm aging backwards. But
I think you are, and you're looking brilliant, Petrie.
So are you. I mean, the cream I'm using, I have been put onto a new cream, and it is miraculous.
Is it Medicaid?
I don't know whether I'm allowed to. Am I allowed to mention it? I don't know whether I am for
it's not ad or gifted, so you can.
Others are available, but it's called Lab 31B. There you go.
Oh right. Okay.
And I've just been put onto it, and it is.
But I'm. Where's Gary getting the YouTube video of you?
I don't know. 2 years ago, popped up on YouTube.
2 years ago.
Yeah, it's something I did 2 years ago. It must have been this show. Because I'm not allowed to do any other show while I'm doing this show.
He'll tell you. Ask him. Yeah. Oi, Gary.
Yeah.
How much Lambrini have you had already?
He's written us a lovely poem, which I will read at the top of the hour, and it really is a lovely, lovely poem. So
read it now, because I won't be listening at the top of the hour.
Yes, you will. I'll do it before you go. I'll read it to you before you leave. So Gary, thank you for the compliment, by the way. That was very, very kind of you. Right, the Mirror. Let's have a look at the Mirror.
Yep.
Blatant profiteering. What do you make of this story? The oil giant has been slammed for raking in £366 a second. While struggling households pay the price of the Iran war. They made $2.4 billion in profit in the first quarter. So that's the first 3 months. Which is double what they normally do. But it's not really their fault. I saw this story and I thought, well, how is this their fault? That the price of oil has gone up.
2 or 3 years, BP took the executive decision to get rid of their, for want of a better word, their strive for net zero. They've put people back into the business to basically drill, baby drill. That's the thing. And that's what's happened. So now we can see that they're a private company. That's what they do. They've got shareholders.
Yeah.
They need to, earn money for. And this is what they're doing. But I love the play on word there, and blatant profiting by BP in the green and yellow of their
it's
logo.
Very clever. But it is like you said, they're a private company. They didn't create this war.
No. What it begs the question to me is whether or not the windfall tax should actually be removed. It's a movable tax. Times have changed when it was first brought in, and I think they need to look at it again. Even if it's a short-term gain, anything to put money back into the pockets of every single one of us. And I don't care who you are. Well, if you're a multi-billionaire, you won't be struggling as much as me and our viewers and listeners, etc. But I think any small thing that can be done, it has to be done. Morally, it has to be done. And this is the start of it. And I know that the Exchequer is taking in millions of pounds a week, but that's to service debt. That's to service other things. That's not going back into the economy.
I mean, there should be some of that profit be passed back to us.
Definitely.
But like you said, they're a private company and they don't care. So, right, quick break, Claire. We'll be back in a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a good evening. It is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me, Claire Muldoon. And Claire, looking at The Guardian, we've got all the other stories there. The PM pleads for unity amongst Labour MPs, no cameras as Trump's meeting with King. But the other story here, Reeves puts rent freeze on the table as costs rise. We talked about this was mentioned yesterday in the papers, but it's got a bit more detail here. Rachel Reeves is considering imposing a 1-year rent freeze on private sector homes in the coming weeks. What do you make of that?
Oh, I think it goes back to COVID times, and we had the lockdowns. That's what this is referred, in part it ties in with. I've heard it reported that it's not even going to be debated. It's just making headlines at the moment to test the temperature. The Renters Reform Bill that's just come in doesn't really preserve renters at all, because landlords can still, by saying, I want the property back, I've got family members moving into it, or I want to sell. That's the reasons that a landlord now has to give you notice to leave. Beforehand, it was a Section 21 notice that you would get that would cover everything. I just want my property back, move out within 2 months or whatever. So the Renters Reform Bill, I don't think, has given that much more power to renters because, as I said, landlords can still get their properties back. What this will do will inevitably help people that are renting. It really, really will, because at least then they'll be able to budget, for the next year. And believe you me, when you rent, it's very difficult to pay rent and save. It's nigh on impossible to do either, because rents are so high.
They're so high.
Especially in the capital.
Yeah, I mean, I look at my son and his girlfriend and I weep for them. I mean, it is so expensive. And looking at the Renters' Rights Bill, they have had a bit, but there was a bit of a confusion as to who owned the property. For some, I don't understand it myself. But 2 people were trying to get rent off them, and all of those things were going on. But the Renters' Rights Bill, there were things in there that I thought they were, because I looked at them. I thought they were really good. One of them is that you're not stuck to a length of tenancy anymore. You can just either stay there or give 2 months notice to leave at any point. You don't have to pay off the rest of the contract. The fact that landlords can be held accountable for their behaviour, and you can go to the council if then, and things like that I thought were really good. But I do think there should be a freeze on rents at the moment. They are absolutely eye-watering.
They really are. They really are. And then on the back of that, on the other side, you might have the landlord that would say, well, my costs are going up as well. I would say this to them. I don't think any single landlord invested in another property to rent out to anyone for a magnanimous reason because someone needed a home. They're making another property to make money. And if they don't make money on a monthly basis, they're still making money in the increased value of their property.
I completely agree.
There is still a rate of return.
Yeah, it's a small. There is a small violin for me. Because I just think that it is getting crippling now, and
it really is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how anybody affords it.
The argument will sell up. Well, if every landlord sells up, then prices will go down because that is supply and demand.
Yeah, just.
Oh, BlackRock will buy them all up. No, they're more likely to buy blocks than they are, or portfolios than they are to buy individual small dwellings.
To wander around thinking, we just let's buy that little 2-bedroom flat or 1-bedroom flat. Yeah. It is ridiculous. I'd like to see more control on rents as well. To be honest with you,
I'd like to see more houses for a start.
Yeah,
and not battery bloody hens that they've got.
I know, awful. The stuff that's being built at the moment in London is appalling. Right, the Daily Star My mother thought you were cute, Chaz.
Yeah.
Orange man baby Donald Trump stunned the king when he revealed his mum had a crush on Charles when he was young.
Oh. And also Big Mac is fried.
Yeah.
That's Big Morgan McSweeney. Oh, he really did twist the knife into Mandelson, though.
Yeah, I mean, really, what a snake
He
in the
really
grass.
did.
Real
he
snake.
He really did.
Yeah, I thought
he
that.
looks good for 48, though.
He
Wonder
looks
what
about...
cream he's using.
I know. I know. Well, he looks like one of those annoying schoolboys, doesn't he? But there you go. So, and apparently the Daily Mail told Trump that he was a distant cousin of the king or something.
Yeah. Oh, they would, wouldn't they?
Yeah. So he was really, really thrilled.
And
with that.
don't forget the King's press secretary, his head of comms, used to be deputy editor of the Daily Mail and the Sunday Mail.
Oh, yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're having their big dinner now, aren't they? Their big
So they're 5 hours
banquet.
behind, yeah. So they'll be
sitting down for that soon. And Yvette Cooper's there.
Oh, I know.
Keeping a low profile, but she is there.
Did the King not shake her hand at the lineup or something?
Probably.
Did you see that?
I tell you what I saw was what I loved was the Queen talking to Tom Daley at the garden party about Tom Daley's knitting.
Yeah.
Because
and what are you doing now? I'm saying I'm crocheting and
and knitting.
Looking after my 2 boys.
I loved it. I thought it was so cute. I'm knitting now. So Tom Daley's a bit of a hero of mine.
Of course you are.
I am, because it stops me
knit one, purl one, knit one, cast off.
Yes. I am knitting right now because it stops me from double screening when I'm trying to watch something and I'm on my phone checking the news.
Yeah.
So it keeps my hands busy because I used to be a smoker.
What are you knitting?
I have knitted... I don't know whether I can...
Can we put orders in? Are you doing anything like an Icelandic knit or a Fair Isle?
No, at the moment I've knitted a top.
A scarf?
I've knitted a tank top for somebody's birthday, and I'm now knitting my son a scarf with a really nice stitch, actually, because he asked me to knit him a black scarf, so that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I'll take orders. I mean, you may not like what I produce, but...
Yeah, well...
There are a few mistakes, but I am enjoying it.
Trade description,
and it's.
In fact, what I will do is show you an AI picture of something.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's made with love. That's about the best thing I can say about it.
Everything.
Yeah, it really does. So you don't have to wear it. I'll just make it. Just keep my hands busy. So this is the poem that I wanted to read you.
Oh, right.
This is from Gary in Glasgow. He says,
favourite Gary.
The dream team that lights up the room. Petrie with the wit sharp as a knife. Claire with the charm that brings joy to life. You two make the headlines feel less like a chore. I tune in each night just to hear you both roar. Funny, fearless and brilliantly bold. My 2 favourite voices in Radio Gold.
Oh, Gary.
Isn't that lovely?
Do you go to sleep for 7 nights a week and then you just wake up to see me because I'm not on every night?
Yeah.
Nor are you.
Keep doing what you do, you wonderful pair. The airwaves are better because you were there.
Oh, Gary, that's just lovely.
Isn't that a nice... I mean, that is so sweet that we get a poem dedicated to us. No mention of Lambrini.
Nope.
No mention...
Funnily enough.
Yeah, that he didn't see you somewhere with a bottle of Lambrini. So
I know.
I think that Gary deserves to go to the top of the class for that one.
I think he does. Teacher's pet.
Yeah. Claire Muldoon, thank you very, very much indeed for helping us go through the papers.
I thoroughly enjoyed tonight, actually. It was a good night.
Too. Good night. And love you dearly, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much indeed. And now, coming up between you and me, we're going to be talking about the Tony Blair Institute, or Blair Institute, who's highlighted that 4 million people are now signed off work with ill health as it blamed the broken system entrenching welfare dependency by parking people on benefits indefinitely. And they say that we've got to change things. We'll talk about it in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning to you. This is Talk Back, and it is Petrie here with you on Talk for the next hour. And what I want to talk to you about is the Tony Blair Institute. They've called for a block on people with anxiety, depression and ADHD claiming benefits. Basically, the default presumption should be that these non-work limiting conditions no longer attract benefits. Now, while I completely understand and agree that the benefit system is running rampant, it is out of control, it is absolutely ridiculous, it is completely unaffordable, and if it continues going with 1,000 people a day signing up, then we are in really, really serious trouble. So it is a disaster in the making, because if it just implodes, then everybody loses, right? It's unsustainable, right? We all agree that. But I don't know. Well, I do think it's dangerous to blanket a condition and say, if you've got that, you're fine. You know, you can go to work. They're saying that new laws would automatically rule that non-work limiting conditions such as anxiety, depression and ADHD would no longer attract cash benefits. The presumption would be that you would no longer get benefits immediately. That would be it. Anybody with anxiety, depression or ADHD signed off work, that would be it. No more cash benefits. Unless you can prove that it is, in fact, work limiting. So it would rely on people for face-to-face assessments and more frequently reassessed. So you'd have to... But that in itself would be unaffordable. I mean, the costs of that is probably more expensive than the costs of the benefits. And you have to come up with a system where we're not shelling out more and more money, and then presumably there'd be people saying, well, that assessment was wrong, so I need to appeal it. And then there'd be people saying, well, how do I prove my depression? Today I'm fine, tomorrow I might be under the blankets not being able to move. I mean, these mental health conditions are so difficult to diagnose, they're difficult to treat, they're difficult to analyse. Even some physical conditions are. Yeah, there are days when I'm completely jumping around like a fool, other days where I can't get out of bed. That doesn't mean that I haven't got MS. That doesn't mean I haven't got a condition. It just means that it's not always the same every day. And that is very much the same with mental health conditions. They're not the same every day. Anybody who's ever had depression or had any anxiety or had panic attacks knows that it's not every day that happens, but it might be often enough that you can't work, or you don't know when you can work and you don't know when you can't work. Anyway, I want to hear from you about how work limiting is your mental health condition, or the mental health condition of somebody that you know and that you care about. Is it safe to say anybody who signed off with anxiety or depression or ADHD, you can work? Just pull yourself together and get a job, right? I mean, if you've got crippling anxiety and crippling ADHD, I don't know how you get through an interview anyway. They're hard enough if you're absolutely fine. So I don't know. Look, there's definitely a problem. There is definitely over prescribing. There's definitely over diagnosis. There's definitely people getting benefits who can absolutely go to work. We all know somebody who's getting benefits, who can work, right? We all do. We know it's being scammed. But it's kind of like the death penalty for me. While I think it would be a good idea in some cases, it's never good enough if one person is put to death wrong, if that was a mistake. And that's how I feel about this, if there are people who are so ill they can't work but they're forced to, or they kill themselves because of it, then the whole system is wrong. I just can't see a way through this. So give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear about how work limiting it is, or if you do have a mental health condition and you strive on through, you keep going. But listen, give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Really interested in this story, so I can't wait to hear from you about it. Louise has called from Kent. Good morning, Louise.
Oh, hi, Petrie. Now, we've spoken before, but I've had a hell of a journey, and I have to say, I think somewhere along the line you might have got it wrong. So firstly, I don't think they should ever have aligned mental health with physical health at all. Yes, access to services should be similar, but they're not the same conditions, partly because a diagnosis in mental health is a subjective thing. It's down to what you tell someone,
yes,
the doctor, whatever.
Absolutely. It's so difficult to prove.
Yeah, there's no test on the planet that can say you've got this.
Yeah.
None. There is none. So with all physical conditions, you can have an X-ray, a blood test, whatever, you can find it. You know, there are one or two exceptions, but mostly you can find it. Right. Now, I got diagnosed way back in 1980. I lost my physiotherapy career within 3 years. It destroyed me to come off work. It was far worse. The medications are so horrible. Some of the side effects, I mean, Parkinsonian symptoms, stiff muscles, tremors, deadpan face, sedation like you just don't know how. So that might prevent you. But when I first became ill, the prevailing culture then was people like me had no hope. We were write-offs. We were, told that was it forever. We were wasting.
And were you signed off with a mental health condition as opposed to?
Yes,
right. Okay.
Yeah. I was diagnosed as bipolar.
Right.
In the days, incidentally, when they medicalised human emotion, because it was my parents' divorce that crashed me. So that was never dealt with. They just said, "Oh, well, you're ill."
Yeah.
And so they actually blame me. But the thing is, in a way, that a mental health, when you get a diagnosis like that, is very disempowering. They tell you everything you can't do. Well, you'll never work, you're a failure. Now, when the recovery ethos came in about sort of early 2000s, I mean, I'd been in and out of hospital lots of times. I wanted to move into archaeology, but I was told I was too ill, etc., etc. But I when it came in, the Mental Health Trust took me on as recovery champion because I was doing so well. And I fought my way back to work. I couldn't go back to physio, but I went back to a local supermarket, a big one, national one, and they supported me. I got in through a scheme with the Shaw Trust to help people get back into work. I was too scared to be till trained. I'd been out of the workplace for 20 years. Terrified to be till trained, so I was a bagpacker, but I worked with them. And when I did get till trained, I used to go in and say, "Look, I'm not sure I'm going to make it all the way through today, but I've come in to try. I can't work on a till." So they give me something else to do. I would call it reverse shopping, would put stuff back on the shelves for them or do that. And then sometimes they'll come and say, "Look, we really need you on a till today." Okay, I'm fine. I'll go on a till. But look, if I really struggle, you have to take me off. And therefore, I really worked with them. I also started public speaking, and I used to speak to businesses, telling people why they should take people back like me and give me a chance. And I then got shortlisted for a national award for Radar, Person of the Year, for my work in that. And I got shortlisted to 1 of 10, which is fantastic. And then eventually I got into service development with mental health. But my last 6 years have been a nightmare because I've been working with a psychologist and I came off all medication. I became very ill with withdrawal, lost one from COVID, a lot, absolute nightmare. But I'm now coming through. I've been with the mental health team for 6 years now, again. But part of me feels with all this, when it comes back to whether people can work anxiety, I mean, these people say they can't work from anxiety. Does that mean they don't go out of the house ever? What I would like to know, and I think is so important, we need to go back to the days when you get benefits for this, you need backup from the mental health team, support from them, but to show that you're engaging and trying to overcome. Unfortunately, when people get signed off now, that's it. They don't have to engage with services, nothing.
I think it's because of the cost, isn't it? The cost of the mental health teams, the lack of the actual.
But if you don't need, if you're not well enough to need secondary care, then I don't think you should be on benefits. If you haven't seen, if you are not ill enough with your mental health conditions to really warrant being referred on to the mental health teams and be under them for a period at least. And then if you then get discharged back to the GP, then you keep your benefits for a while. But you see, even mental health teams now have got dedicated teams to help people back get into work. I think one of the biggest problems is, as soon as you say you've got a mental health problem to a workplace, you won't get a job. Because businesses won't take people on with mental health. The stigma is horrendous. And so people are saying they're unwell, etc. And yet they don't seem to understand that they won't get a job. This is the problem with it. It's a nightmare.
Look, I get it. It is really difficult. And it's interesting what you said about right at the beginning when you said you don't think that mental health illnesses should be on a par with physical health. In
the sense that it's not the same sort of diagnosis. So mental health is a subjective diagnosis. It's what you tell the doctor, as opposed to something that can be absolutely tested for. Now, I think it should be equal access like with physical. You know, there should be the services there for everyone, but they're not the same conditions, because I do believe that if you get the right support, care, you might need to be on medication if that's the case. And if you're on medication and it's all good, you should remain fairly stable.
Yeah.
It's not up and down. You're not in bed one day and out bed the next. Yes, you go through crisis periods. But, you know, to be saying that, oh, well, one day you're like this and one day you're not, is not quite true. When I got ill, I would go downhill for 4 or 5 months before I went into hospital. Then I'd be in hospital for 3 or 4 months. And then it was a workout, and it was a bit of up and down on the way out. But generally, you get your stability back and you cope. I think without work, one of the biggest problems is you've got nothing to do. It makes you worse.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think that work is more than just earning money. It's so good for your mental health.
I do think there's a good case to say that lots of people with mental health maybe can't work full time, and I think there's too much pressure once you start work to push you back full time, and that might make people very unwell. And I think there ought to be a case that if you can do 10 or 14 hours for 5-10 years and you get topped up with benefits, great. If you then feel, well, I can do a bit more now because it's doing me a lot of good, then you lower your benefits because you're getting more money. And do it that way rather than say, right, well, you're back at work 10 hours, you've been at it for a year now, you've got to go back full time. That doesn't work. It didn't work for me. I couldn't do that, and that's why I eventually applied for PIP and got PIP, because I wanted to be in work. And I went to see a tribunal, saw the judge with the DW people there, had the support social workers with me. And they said, oh, well, focus on your worst day. I said, no, I'm going to focus on all the things I need to do on a daily basis to keep well, which is actually much more difficult in a way than when it all goes wrong and I go unwell, because I have to work really hard at that. And the judge said at the end, she said, no, this is absolutely right. this is what this benefit is for, to make people's lives better, so that if you want to work, you can. PIP was never meant to be an out-of-work benefit. It's to support you to live the best
Well,
life
that's
you
why,
can with your illness.
as you point out, the people who are working can get PIP. You can have a full-time. It doesn't matter. It's not means tested. It's based on if you need a bit of extra help getting to and from work, for example, or in work.
I think there's almost an element for me with PIP where you should only get PIP if you're in secondary care. So that means you're severely ill, that you've gone into, help with consultants. Then you can get PIP. But also, I think there's almost a thing that you can get PIP to support you in work. But if you're not in work with a mental health condition, you really shouldn't get PIP, because there's lots of other benefits you get. And if we did it like that, because PIP's not means tested, so if you're in work but you need extra support to help you in work, then PIP's a really good one for that. But if you're out of work and not doing anything, then maybe just the standard out-of-work benefits might be enough, because you're not needing that extra bit to help you work.
Yeah, I take your point. I think you make some excellent points there, actually. I mean, I'm a complete stranger to the benefit system, because I was freelance. I was never able to claim, because I would always get one day here or one day there, and that prevented me from ever being
I tell
eligible.
You something really crazy, Petrie. All those years when I was ill up until sort of went back to work, right, the benefit system was very, very different. And for many years, I only ever got incapacity benefit. That was it. So I had to pay for all my prescriptions a lot. But because I was on a low income, I did get council tax benefit. But when I went into hospital, all your benefits stop.
Yes.
And so guess what happened? They came into hospital to reassess me to start paying council tax again. So I had less money coming in, but I was then expected to pay council tax even though I was in hospital.
I know that sort of thing actually really frustrates me.
That doesn't happen now, but that in the same way now. But it did then, and I do remember the first time
absolutely
I got put
shocking.
on Section 3. I was detained on Section 3 because I was a risk to my own life. I was severely ill. I was on 10-minute observations a lot, and the council came in to see me, and all my paperwork from home. And when you're on 10-minute observations, that's equivalent to being in, let's say, in high dependency, in a physical care. Can you imagine what would happen whether staff would even let council people in for you to talk about your income levels?
Unbelievable.
If you're in hypersensitivity. But that's the kind of thing that you have to cope with in hospital.
That is awful. That is just shocking. I'm glad that doesn't happen. I bet it does happen somewhere. Louise, brilliant call. Thank you. Lots to think about there. Join in the conversation. Be the conversation. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK. on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and we're talking about the Tony Blair Institute, which has come up with a plan. It's advising that the default presumption should be that non-work limiting conditions should no longer attract benefits. Those non-work limiting conditions are anxiety, depression, and ADHD would no longer attract cash benefits. That's the plan. They're saying that the welfare system is no longer fit for purpose. And it urged Labour to introduce an immediate legislation to slow a proliferation in claims linked to mental health, which has fueled a surge in people signing on to sickness and disability benefits, such as universal credit and personal independence payments. Official figures show the cost of health and disability benefits hit £56.9 billion in the current financial year, up from £37 billion before the pandemic. So it can't continue. That is a massive rise in a very short period of time. So we know it can't continue. But is it right just to say mental health issues, blanket, not the same as physical health conditions, you're not going to get benefits? So, or prove it. I don't know, because there will be people who are really badly hurt by this if it were to happen. Anyway, let's get back to your calls. John is in West Lothian. Morning, John.
Oh, good morning to you.
So, what do you make of this proposal?
Well, I shall make some comments, but I don't wish you to get terribly excited and get into flowery language, which you said earlier you might do.
What, me? Get into flowery language? Never. Never sworn in my life.
No, I'm sure not. I'm sure not.
I'm very good at it, actually.
Well, you're an expert at whatever you do.
Thank you. Right. So, do you think it's right to say that mental health shouldn't attract benefits?
No. I was a trustee of a mental health charity for a period of time, and we helped so many people. But it's about actually listening to what people are about. Unfortunately, I blame the state for what the state, where we're in now, is that they've encouraged people to go down this route. They've encouraged people to say that, just go and sign on or do whatever, and the state will keep you. And it's totally wrong.
Yeah.
What we should be encouraging people to do is to have... I was going to say self-respect, but I mean most people probably have that anyway. But it's to understand that by being part of the community, providing something, to working, to looking after the family themselves, it gives them self-respect, and that's the way to overcome some of these things.
Yeah.
But it's so easy nowadays, and I know many people. And because I do a lot of various charity work and various other things, that people think that it's an entitlement nowadays. I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And
why should I? It's the why should I work?
Yes.
Attitude.
And I know people that are now in second and possibly even third generation that have never worked because they say, well, my mum and dad didn't do it, and I got this mobile phone, and I got this latest this, and I got that. Why should I have to do it? It's about respect for your fellow human beings, your community and whatever. And I feel very, very strongly about that, is that the government has to do something to encourage that and not to go down the other route. Because the easiest thing is to say, we'll give you this for free, that for free. But what these people that, say, that's great, I'm getting it for free. But what they seem to forget is that the people that are working are
paying for it.
Paying for it.
Yeah.
It's so selfish. It is unbelievable. and maybe I'm just old, and I think I've talked.
No, I completely agree with you. I over the years that I've done, many years that I've done phone-ins, there was one young woman that stuck in my mind because she wasn't here. It was at another radio station, but she was saying, "Well, why should I work? My grandparents worked. They paid into the system." And I'm like, "Yeah, but your parents didn't work." "No." "And you don't work." "No." "Why should I work? I don't want to work." I was absolutely gobsmacked. I said, "But you realise that I'm paying your benefit?" And she went, "Well, what do you want me to do? Say thank you?" Actually, yeah, I wouldn't mind. But it's that attitude, and that I can't really blame her because she's been brought up with that attitude, right? She was told that this was her right.
Yeah, exactly, and that's just something that we all have to work to change. I worked all my life from the day I left school until whatever, and my parents did the same. We were brought up with that. You didn't ask people for anything. You actually had to work for it. You had to make a contribution to it.
Yeah, it never crossed my mind as a young person because I had parents that worked, and I didn't even know there was a benefit system. I had no idea that one existed even.
No, I mean, all right, I had worked hard and I got a private pension, but now I'm paying tax on that as well. So I'm also paying tax to keep people that are not working.
Yeah, I know.
But it's something that society has to get a grip of. We actually have to have politicians that actually have the courage to stand up and speak for it and say that we'll help people that are genuinely in need. And I do that because of all the charity work and stuff that I do. I will always help anybody and everybody who are genuinely needy. But when I hear people that say, "Oh, I'm bored about going to Disneyland and Paris, 3 times a year. Should I now think about a cruise, in the Caribbean or something?" And they've never worked in their lives, and it's just horrendous that we've got people in our society that wants to live like that.
That just leech off the rest of us. I completely agree. But how do we? I mean, look, the trouble is that the social contract has broken down, right? It used to be that if you worked hard, you would be able to afford a property. You would be able to have your family, support your family. That was the social contract. You join into society, be part of society, and you will be rewarded for it. Well, the reward aspect of that has completely gone. So what is in it for you? I mean, this is what a lot of people would think, right? Certainly of my son's age, 28. He's always going to be a worker. He's a worker like me, right? But for his age group, what's in it for him? Yeah, he's probably never going to see a state pension. He's paying into already with his national insurance for people who are taking their pension now. He's probably not going to reach pension age until he's 75, even if there is a pension by then. And he can't afford to buy a property. He can't even afford to have a cat. So the social
contract. You can't have a cat.
Do you know what I mean? The social contract isn't there.
But not a cat.
Yeah, he can't. He's got a very nice girlfriend, but not a cat. But do you know what I mean? I understand why people opt out of society because society has opted out on them. Yeah, there's so much that's got to be fixed to encourage people that working is the right way.
Yes, but that sorry, Petrie. That's why we have to get politicians who are real people who actually understand these things. People seem to go into politics these days straight from university or whatever with no experience, no whatever, and that's the way they've been brought up. It's the way they've been taught. You have to get back to, dare I say, get back to basics.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is an expression nowadays which is frowned upon. But actually, if you do that, you're helping everybody in society.
Yeah.
You're encouraging people, their mental health, their well-being, everything else, their respect for their families, for each other. It's a community thing. And I keep coming back to this community thing. that's how society will improve, and that's how it will get better. Not because we're selfish and we think, oh, somebody else will give us the money. There is no such thing in this life as free money, free payments. Somebody has to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the moment the system is trapping people into benefits, and it's easy to see how it works. And I don't blame a lot of people who are in benefits thinking, well, if I get a job, I lose all my benefits and I've got to re-sign up again if it doesn't work out, and that could take forever. And this is regular money. It's not irregular like a job might be. I totally understand it, but the whole system has got to change in order to make it beneficial to go to work. And that
it is a system that is wrong.
Yeah, it totally is.
I understand why. You talk about the minimum wage. They put up the minimum wage, and people have lost their jobs because of it. Right? So there has to be a balance between what is affordable to businesses, and you may have to top it up. I mean, I don't think anybody would, be against that. But if you say that I'm going to sit at home and do nothing, and I'm still going to get the same money as somebody who goes and works 40, 50, 60 hours a week, it is ludicrous.
It is wrong. It is on every level. It is wrong, and I feel so badly for people who are, who are out there working and know somebody who's living a better life than them on benefits. That was never meant to. It was never meant to be like this. It wasn't. This was not what the welfare system was set up to be at all. It was a safety net, not a fishing net. John, brilliant to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. A quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you with your Talk Back Hour, and we are talking at the moment about benefits, the benefits bill, and how it is completely out of control, right? We know that. We all know that. And we probably all know somebody who's claiming benefits who probably doesn't need them. I know I do. Who's blagging. But anyway, this idea from the Tony Blair Institute has called for a block on people with anxiety, depression and ADHD claiming benefits. They're saying that claimants should have to support any claims with medical evidence. I just don't know how you provide evidence for a mental health condition, because it is subjective, as was said earlier on. Louise said that. And it depends on who you're talking to, and if it's a GP that thinks it's all stuff and nonsense, then you won't get your evidence. And if it's a GP that is, empathetic, then you might get your evidence. But there isn't evidence, right? There's no evidence. There's just a doctor agreeing with you. I don't know whether that would count as evidence. So I wonder if you agree with this, that people with anxiety, depression and ADHD should not get cash benefits, or whether you think that it's on a scale and it shouldn't just be a blanket block on people getting benefits for those conditions. It was brought into law that physical and mental health conditions were to be treated on a par. They were to be, but was that a mistake? Louise seems to think it was. Right, let's go to your calls now. And Jonathan is in Newcastle. He's a new caller. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning.
Good to speak to you, Jonathan. What do you make of this?
What I make of this, if I'm going to put like an argument in place for, would be yes. Yes, people with mental health or ADHD have the potential. They can, if they want to work, they can't work. That can't stop them not to work. But my argument is around this, the impact that can cause when they decide to work if they're not properly assessed.
Right.
The reason behind this is because although they can be productive, the impact could be the instability. Like, for example, time management. It could be something like relapse if they're on medication and maybe they don't concur with that medication. There's a lot of things that will impact that work and which can decrease productivity.
That's a very good point. So you're saying that people with mental health conditions, can work in some cases, but they will need support and understanding to do that work.
Yes, there should be a robust plan by government if they're going to put this in place around the policy development itself, and also what I would like to add there around that robust kind of thing that they can do is to make sure that people who would decide to go back to work, how can they retain that? That retention is what, is required, because that could cause a lot of kind of work for the managers who will be managing the processes in their company.
Yeah, I mean, again, you make an excellent point. This has got to be that businesses are willing to take that on, right? They've got to be prepared to, for example, somebody with a physical disability, with a wheelchair, the management needs to put in place systems and situations where the access is available, right? So, but if it's a mental health condition, it may be that the person can have panic attacks and might need a quiet room to go into during a meeting even, and get up and walk out and go and sit in a quiet room. Or somebody with anxiety who says, I can't work today. There's got to be more understanding around that. But do you think businesses will be prepared to take people on like that?
This will also depend on individual basis. It will depend on individual basis. Let's just.
But small companies wouldn't be able to afford it, would they?
Mental health, and then ADHD. ADHD, I would say, for me, it would be like some kind of neurodevelopment, wherein the person is capable, but can be disruptive. If that cannot be really kind of assessed, wherein professionals can look at it closely and provide a kind of assessment tool to determine whether this person with ADHD has the capacity to work.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
So making a policy around that also must link into the Equality Act 2010, the protective characteristic of that person, wherein there should be that reasonable adjustment. This is my kind of thing. I'm thinking, if they bring in this, what benefit what would be the process around, yes, let them get into work, but what would be the level of productivity? At the end of the day, in any business, is to maximize profit.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that is the point that this think tank hasn't thunk about, isn't it? It's not just saying to people, right, you're going to lose your benefit, go and get a job. It is also who's going to employ them, and can they do that job? Is it possible for them to do it with support? Is it possible for them to do it part-time? That seems to be missing from this equation. And that is so important. That's the only way this is going to work, isn't it?
Definitely. And for me, my kind of thought and feeling around this is to think about those people in their different individual kind of capacity, to think that they have their own world of thinking, they have their own world of feeling. Are we going to empathize, or are we going to balance the act? Is government going to balance the act? Is it just because to get people into work for the name to say, yes, employability or employment rate has increased, or is it because of the economic reasons or what we're going through? As we can see what is happening around the world, it actually have to meet that elasticity of demand. If we really want to get people to work with ADHD and mental health, then we have to have the right assessment tool.
Brilliant. Excellent first call, Jonathan. I completely agree with you. And it's a very, very, very important point to have brought up. Jonathan there in Newcastle, thank you very much indeed. And he's right, isn't he? It's not just about saying to somebody, right, you've got no money, go to work. Because, first of all, how do they get a job? Second of all, they've got to find a job where they can be completely open about their mental health condition. Are they going to give them the job? And then they've got that business has got to put in a reasonable adjustment for those people so that they can work and can be as productive as they can be. But if that's not productive enough, nobody's going to employ them. So you can't just say you can't have benefits. But then what? Then what happens? Robert is in Fife. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning.
How are you this morning? All right.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. One being, years ago, my wife developed arthritis and depression as well as asthma.
Right.
And she couldn't walk, so we eventually got mobility. And we had to fight really hard for it. We had a nurse that came out from Atos, the Tories' favourite people.
Oh yeah, I remember them.
And they did everything they could to make us suffer, and we repeatedly got nothing. Eventually, I got my doctor to write a report, and I took it to an appeal, and we won. Now, you talk about people that are unemployed. Well, a lot of them unemployment is down to the fact that David Cameron invented the workfare scheme. So a lot of businesses are getting workers that are free and basically offer the benefits. They're paying their bills, they're paying their bus fares and everything else, and they're basically suffering like hell. It's the same with the people that, it's the same when they did away with the child benefit for more than 2 children. It's ridiculous. I know people that suffer because of it.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point. Point is that another law that was changed. I mean, my wife eventually got the mobility. We got a car. It was the only way we could ever afford one. And I worked till I was blue in the face. I actually had a heart attack at the end of it because I worked 7 days a week for 15 years. It's just she was ill and we had to keep the children and everything. Now, the law was changed again by David Cameron. You won't believe it. If you can plan a journey, you will not get the mobility to get a car. And that's what happened to us, and they took the car away. So for 5 years, my wife couldn't get out because we couldn't get her to a bus stop and we couldn't afford taxis. And basically what happened is she went into a depression. She went downhill for 5 years. The last year, she was pretty much always in her bed, and then she died. She was 54 years old.
Gosh.
And I hope to hell David Cameron burns in hell. Honest to God, I hate that man.
Do you know what? A lot of people make these decisions without knowledge of or without understanding of what that's actually going to do or who it's going to impact.
It's just victimising the disabled and the poor. I mean, you consider it, if you were unemployed and you had a council house and you had an extra bedroom, you had to pay bedroom tax. That was £14 a month or something like that. Where the hell are they going to get that off of £70 a week? No, £70 a fortnight. I mean, my sons work their arses off because they're trying to build up enough money to get a new house, or even, whatever they can. And I mean, it's a case of I take nothing off them because I want them to save and have a future.
Yeah.
My future is dead because my wife's dead. I've got nothing now.
Oh, Robert,
I retired to a state pension with the idea that we were going to live the life we needed to live or we wanted to live for years, but we had to get the children sort of grown up first. But she died 4 years ago.
I'm so sorry. I mean, and also to go through all of that before that she died. I mean, that is no age at all. But I do think that the system is designed to support people like you. It's just not designed to support everybody that's on it.
I know people whose parents are on disability, their children are on disability, and there's nothing wrong with any of them. I can see people along the road from me. Now, you're talking about asylum seekers. They're getting new houses off the council. They're driving around in BMWs. They've got the latest phones and the latest style of clothing. I mean, and we work our arses off and get nothing.
Yeah. There is such an imbalance in society. I completely agree with that, Robert. I'm so sorry about your wife. And I hope you do find that you do have a future. So just hang on in there. Thank you, Robert. Got to take a quick break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. This is Talk, and this is Talk Back, and I'm Petrie. And by goodness me, we've had so many calls tonight on this issue. I'm so pleased that you've picked up the phone to talk to me about this. The next person I'm going to talk to is Michelle, who's in Birmingham. Michelle, good morning.
Hello.
Good.
How are you?
I'm very well. I hope you are as well.
I am. I love listening to you because I find your voice so soothing.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
No, I do.
I haven't sent you to sleep yet, then.
No, because I've actually, I'm nearly 50 and I am actually genuinely, I've got ADHD. So, I'm under a psychiatrist and everything, and they've prescribed me so many different medications, so I'm still wide awake. I'll probably still be awake at about 3-4 o'clock.
Oh, so will I. I'll think of you. When I'm lying,
thank you.
I will. I'll send you a good night message. Yeah, I will. I promise.
Oh, don't. Because my mum, when I was little, my mum used to say to me, like, she'd come up the stairs. First of all, right, forget that. Right, what I want to say is, I've listened to all of this, and I can hear, like, my mum and dad was born just after the war. My dad was a bricklayer. My mum, she left school at the age of 14. She chose not to go to a grammar school because her older sister, there was a year between them, failed the test. And my mum left anyway. She became a machinist. My mum and dad then went on. My mum was a business owner. My dad was self-employed, everything. Anyway, went through all of the Alvita saying pet stuff and all that because my dad was a brickie. Right, so there's 2 children. I've got an older brother. He's really sensible. He's really good. I'm the younger daughter in the 80s. All the school reports was like, if she just listened more, if she stopped distracting people. Anyway, so I've got 4 children, 3 sons, 1 daughter. My daughter's doing amazing, and she's doing so good. She's going on to do her A-levels. She wants to be a barrister.
Wow.
When we come on to my When we come on to my 3 sons, when we come on to my 3 sons, my youngest is 14. So we know like conditions like neurodivergent, ADHD, autism. More prevalent in boys, so on and so forth. So I rang up because I understand where society is coming from with the whole benefit thing. So my partner, he's self-employed. He gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He goes to work. I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning. My school run is literally, this is my school run. I do nearly 90 miles a day to take our youngest son to school. He's 14, but he has an EHC plan.
Right.
But I will go back now. I'll rewind. Our eldest son is 25. Our second eldest is now 22, who has just come out of prison. And he was in prison for nearly a year, and he was in prison. It's not for drugs or anything like that. It is the ADHD that he cannot. I remember when he was about 5-6 years of age, and I remember saying to the GP, and he already had like a statement of special needs for ADHD. They diagnosed it, they've changed the name of it with ODD, oppositional defiance disorder. They've now changed it to PAD. And I remember saying to the GP, like, I think my son's a sociopath, like, please, like, I can't cope with him. And I rang up earlier because when I listened to this, and he's absolutely beautiful. He is, like, he's gorgeous. If you've seen him, he's so beautiful, right? But yeah, he could not cope in an environment where if somebody said to him, do this. I was listening to, I think it was the first guy that rang you and spoke to you. If they said to him, do this, but if they said it and he interpreted it in a wrong way, he would literally, he would switch. And
would he lash out? Would he physically lash out, or potentially?
The potential is there. But what the potential is with him is, I always remember he was about 8 years of age, and we'd gone to IKEA, and we got, the Kallax unit, the Mad Kallax unit, and we'd got some of them. We was doing some at home, and my other half, and he was like, I can't work out these instructions, and he just literally come from nowhere, pushed the instructions to one side, and he just built it. And even his grandma and granddad would be like, they'll go to IKEA and just buy furniture, and they'd just be like.
So he could see that. He could see those patterns, and
without the instructions, yeah.
Well, the instructions are rubbish anyway. But I mean,
but without the instructions, and also he can drive a car. He can literally drive, and I was like, "How can you drive?" And he's just like, "I can do it." And I was like, "But you've never even had a driving lesson." And he went and sat his theory test and passed it the first time.
Wow.
Full marks without practicing.
So this is really worrying then, because you're seeing this side of this boy, this young man, who is incredibly capable within certain limitations, but you know that he couldn't go and get a job. So
no, he's within, how do I explain? Like within his kind of like. Well, no, he's so literally he could, and my eldest son and my youngest son, they could literally, if there was no constraints put on them, if they felt like they wasn't kind of having to conform, they could literally, they would fly you not to the moon, they'd take you to Mars, but when they feel like I don't know, like, yeah.
No, I'm hearing you. I completely understand. I can understand what you're saying. So they would need to be in a work environment that understood that, right? And that would be very difficult to find.
It would, or if they could set up